Dear training officers, good morning and welcome to this session. I am R. Thangamani, Director, National Water Academy, Pune. In this session, we will discuss about the flood management in India, overview, structural and non-structural measures including flood forecasting. What is flood? A relatively high flow or stage in a river marked by higher than the usual, causing inundation of low land, or a body of water rising, swelling and overflowing land not usually covered by water. This is the general definition of flood. It means flood is a stage or state where the low level area or the area which are not usually covered with water, if it is covered with water, that is called flood. But how do we define it technically for our utility purposes? We will see in the coming slides. With regard to flood, we categorize the flood depending upon the place where it occurs. The first type of flood is river flood, which generally occurs in the rivers. The picture what we are showing is the Periyar river flowing full in Kerala state. This generally happens during the monsoon month from June to September. This picture shows the full flow condition and overflowing condition of river Periyar, where you can see the flood water even overflow through the bunds also. The second category of flood is the urban flooding. Urban flooding in the sense, the flooding occurs in the urbanized areas of the cities or towns. The picture what we are seeing is the flood situation that occurred in Chennai during 2015. If you see the picture, no area is spared. The residential colony, airport, educational institutes and the main roads also. This urban flooding is mainly due to for two reasons, we can say. One is sudden heavy rainfall. Second is there is no way for the water to drain. So it has the drainage problem also added to its issue. This is the another picture taken during the Chennai flood 2015, where you can see the boats and the rescue boats of National Disaster Management Authority, they are plying on the main streets. So this was the condition during 2015. The third category of flood is coastal flooding. Coastal flooding generally occurs due to tidal flooding induced by typhoons or cyclones. Here I want to make clear one important point is, what is tide? Tide is nothing but the rise and fall of the ocean water level due to the effect of sun and moon. For the Indian coast, both east and west, the high tide and low tide occurs diurnally. It means in a day, 2 times the high tide occurs and 2 times the low tide occurs. The low tide occurs in the early morning between 5 to 6:30, and between noon time, around noon time 1 to 2:30, the high tide. Again by evening 6 o'clock, low tide. Again during midnight it goes for high tide. The coastal flooding generally occurs during the high tide season. When the high tide combined with the cyclone storm, then it leads to coastal flood. The picture is one such coastal flood. As I already told, the definition of this, technical definition of the flood prone area is, it has been categorized into 3 categories: normal flood prone area, moderate flood prone area and severe flood prone area. We will go from one by one. The area inundated once in 10 years flood frequency, that is called normal flood prone area. And moderate flood prone area means if the area is flooded once in 7 years, that is called moderate flood prone area. And severe flood prone area means it is being flooded 1 in 3 years. It means once in 3 years the flood drowns the area, flood fills the low level area, flood inundates the low level area. So accordingly our actions also have to be initiated. So this has been recommended by one of the expert committee. What is the major cause for this flood and how India is vulnerable to flood? If you look at the statistics, it is very important. The total area is 329 million hectares, out of which 40 million hectares are prone to flood. It means almost 1/8 of our total area is prone to flood. It may be either low, medium or highly prone, but it is prone. So 1/8 of our area is prone to flood. And what is our annual losses? The data has been taken from 1953 to 2016. If you look at the averages, every year 7 million hectares are being affected. And on an average, every year we are losing almost 1600 human lives and cattle lost, almost 1 lakh cattle. If you see the monetary loss, it works out to 5,400 crores annually we are losing due to flood. This is the overall scenario. As the central agency or the state agency involved in the water sector, what is our role to play in this one, which we will be seeing in the subsequent slides. This is the year-wise affected statistics from 1953 to 2016. If you look at the figure, one of the very highly flooded year is 1979-80, again 89, again 2005, again 2015. So this shows that is the peak, and in the normal area also, if you look at it, almost on an average 10 million hectares of area is affected. The peak is 18 into 1980. This year 1980 have a very significant in the flood management, which we will see in the coming year. This is again the year-wise population affected. Population in a million. The year 1980, 70 million population have been affected. 70 million means 7 crore people were affected due to flood. This is the tabulated form of the statistics which I have shown earlier. We will see one or two important. As I told you already, the average is human life loss is 1600, area affected is 7 million annually, and our total damage is 5,400. We can remember this way that every year India is losing around 5,000 crores due to flood. Why this flood occurs? What is the major cause which creates this flood is rainfall. Rainfall means whether rainfall or rainfall with combined effect. Let us see here. Our annual runoff is 4,000 BCM, out of which almost 75%, 75 to 80%, it happens within just these 4 months, June to September monsoon months. And these 4 months also, it is not distributed uniformly throughout the country. The rainfall varies from 100 mm at one place to 11,000 mm in the another corner. It means within these 4 months of monsoon period also, it is 4 months of monsoon period means 120 days rainy days. In those 120 days also, it does not rain continuously. And if you work out hourly basis, in those 120 days also, the entire quantity falls just in 100 hours. This spatial distribution, temporal distribution and concentration of rainfall within a very short duration is the main cause for the flood. This is the graph which shows the spatial distribution of the rainfall. If you look at this map, the rainfall, the dark blue means heavily rainfall area, and lighter the blue, it is less rainfall. If you look at it, the west coast area of India and the northeast region and the Ganga basin are the heavily rainfall area, and the western Rajasthan area is the least rainfall in the country. As we told already, from June to September 75% of the rainfall happens. This is the temporal variation graph. If you look at the picture, rainfall percentage, June, July, August, September, it works out to 75% of the rainfall. This is the graphical chart of the temporal variation. Now, we find that rain, which is concentrated within a very short duration, is the one of the major reasons for flood. What are the other reasons? As an engineer, we have to look at the issue. First is inadequate channel capacity. This is very simple. When it is overflowing, it means what? The capacity of the channel is not sufficient. So what we have to do? Increase the capacity. And second is synchronization of peak floods in the main and tributary rivers. This is one of the technical terminology. For example, there is a flood in the Ganga river, and simultaneously, if the water comes and joins from its tributaries, the peak flow of the main river and the peak flow of the tributaries, if it happens at a particular time, then also the flood occurs. Heavy rainfall synchronization with river spills. For example, already the river is spilling. The river may be spilling because of the rain in the upstream catchment area also. But suppose the river is spilling and simultaneously rain occurs in the low level area, then the effect of flood is increased. This is called synchronization with river spills. Landslides causing obstruction to river flow and change in river courses. This generally happens in the steepy slope western rivers. A small landslide occurs and it obstructs the flow path, then water spills the river. Next is synchronization of upland flows, upland floods with high tides. This generally happens in the coastal areas. As we discussed earlier, high tide occurs during noon time, and if it is combined with the synchronization of flood, then the effect will be double. In the last year, when we see the Mumbai flood, already Mumbai urban area is heavily flooded due to the heavy downpour, and this was combined with the high tide during the noon time. Then because of this, what happens? The effect of the damage or flood becomes very severe. Inadequate drainage to carry surplus water. What is this? For example, the low level area is filled with water, inundated with water. What is our next course? You have to drain it. If you drain the excess water available in the or filled in the low level area, at least you create some cushion for the new water to come. Suppose if there is no proper drainage, what happens? There is no way for the water to go, then it cannot accommodate any new water. Bank erosion and silting. This is another reason. Generally what happens? Whenever due to heavy flood, the bank erodes. When the bank erodes, the eroded soil again deposits on the bed itself. When it deposits, what happens again? The carrying capacity of the channel is reduced. This will add to the problem. Inadequate waterways at rail and road crossings coupled with encroachment of floodplains. It is one of the very important points, especially in the urban areas where the floodplains are being occupied by the people, leaving very less way for the water to discharge. Unplanned reservoir regulation. This is one of the technical problem where the engineers are always charged that the reservoirs are not being properly operated. What is this unplanned reservoir operation? It means suppose already the heavy rainfall is happening and combined with this one, if we also discharge heavy water from the reservoir, the effect will be severe. The last one is failure of flood management structures. What is this flood management structures? You have constructed a barrage, you have constructed a storage, water storage structures. If it suddenly fails, what happens? The water stored in the water storage structures suddenly released to the river or canals. That also creates the river flood. Who are all involved in the tackling this flood or managing this flood? At central level, Ministry of Jal Shakti, Department of Water Resource, River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation, Central Water Commission, Ganga Flood Control Commission, Brahmaputra Board, National Disaster Management Authority and State Flood Control Departments. It is called generally Public Works Department in Tamil Nadu, Irrigation Department in other states and Water Resource Department in some other states. This picture shows the areas prone to flood. The areas which are marked with the dark red are highly prone to floods. If you look at this map, it shows that the Ganga basin, Brahmaputra basin, Godavari, Mahanadi and the west flowing rivers of Periyar in Kerala, they are being prone to flood every year during the monsoon season. Now we will go to the next slide. This slide talks about the constitutional provisions for flood management. If you look at this slide, I have reproduced here the entry 17 of the list 2. List 2 means state list. Water, that is to say, water supply, irrigation and canals, drainage and embankments, water storage and water power are in the state list except subject to the provision of entry 56 which talks about the interstate rivers. It means the major role in this flood management is of the state government. Then what is the role of the union government or central government? We will see in the coming slides. Who execute this flood management work? The flood management and anti-erosion schemes are planned, investigated, implemented by the state governments with their own resources as per priority within the state. Then what does the union government does? The union government only renders assistance to state, which is technical, advisory, catalytic. Catalytic means Government of India funds the flood management program with certain ratio of money and promotional in nature. Here, this slide we want to emphasize that the role of the state government is more important in managing the flood. The union government role is only to assist the state government in managing the flood. How the flood management policies evolved in India? I have given all the policies starting from 1954 to the till date. Let us see the 2-3 important. The first one is the policy statement 1954 and the supplementary statement in 1956. This is where the first they started there need a policy statement for management of flood. And next, the most important one is The Rashtriya Bar Ayog, as I told you already, 1980 is a significant year in the flood management. After the 1980 flood, Government of India formed Rashtriya Bar Ayog. It means National Flood Commission. It comes out with a very elaborate report and which formed very base for the subsequent policies on flood management. So the first one is Policy Statement 1954. Next important one is Rashtriya Bar Ayog Report 1980 and our first National Water Policy 1987. I have given a series of the committees which evolved in the policies just for our literature's sake and how the policies are evolved. It has not evolved overnight. And National Water Policy in 2002 also talks about it. We will go to the next slide. The latest National Water Policy 2012 also hints about the flood management policies. Now, so far we discussed about the flood definition, causes for flood, and the spatial and temporal variation of rainfall, which is the main source of flood, and the causes of river floods. We have seen many lists, and we have seen the policies so far evolved for flood management. And what is the strategy over now? We know the issues now. Issues are in front of us. How we are going to tackle it? What is our strategy? Strategy means broad guidelines. First is complete protection against flood is not at all feasible due to very large cost involved. Suppose I feel a river is there. On both sides you construct a 15-meter high embankment. There is no flood will cross the bund and reach your land. But constructing such a huge structures involves very high cost. So complete protection against flood is not possible. So then what is our strategy? So our strategies are classified into three groups. First one is attempts to modify the flood. It means what? In a simple terminology, try to control the flood. Control means control and allow the flood to pass through the directed channel. It's a control measure. Second is attempt to modify the susceptibility to flood damages. It means don't go for a full control, partial control and partial management. And third one is, first is control, second is manage, third one is, if both are not possible, at least reduce your losses. This is our strategy. I will repeat it. Flood management strategies. First is control, second is manage, and third is reduce the loss. Simply saying escape. So, but in our implementation strategy, we use the mixture of all. Let us see how. Those are all our strategies. And how we are going to implement it in the field is, one is through structural measures and second is through non-structural measures. As the name itself suggests, structural measures means constructing some physical structures to control and manage the flood. Non-structural measures means no structural construction is involved. Let us see what are all those and how we are applying it. Under structural measures, the main important structures are dams and reservoirs, detention basins, embankments and flood walls, channel improvement, drainage improvement, diversion of flood waters, watershed managements. Considering it the importance, we will discuss one by one. Dams and reservoirs. Reservoirs moderate the intensity of incoming flood. As we already told, due to the high intensity of rainfall only, floods are coming. So what happens when we construct dams and reservoir? the high incoming water is being received by reservoir and allowed to flow downstream in a controlled manner. So by that way, reservoirs and dams help us to moderate the flood. By proper reservoir operation, again the same thing. When you store the flood water, you can release as per your requirement, of the capacity of the downstream. And third one is specific flood spaces allocated in the reservoirs, especially in the high rainfall area. We keep this cushion always without filling it. We keep it as a flood cushion to accommodate the flood water. RBA, Rashtriya Bar Ayog recommends 100-year and 25-year return periods for flood protection of cities and agricultural land. If you look at here, when the return period goes up, the quantity for which we are designing the structures also goes up. 100-year return flood means it will be very high. 25-year return period flood means it will be comparatively lesser. So, for urban areas, high return period means because urban areas are very heavily populated. For rural and agricultural land means it is thinly populated. So, the flood management structures or flood protection structures are designed for little lesser return period. Operation of reservoirs based on advanced flood warning. In this one only Central Water Commission helps, which we will see in the detail in the coming slide. Detention basins. Detention basins are the existing natural low level areas where you can divert the water and store it with little modification in the or construction of bunds so that the flood is moderated, relatively less costly, provided suitable natural depression is available. Some places it suits. So detention basins cannot be taken as a common for all the places. Embankments and flood walls. This is one of the pure structural measure. In the sense, they confine the flood flows and prevent spilling. This we do generally very thickly populated areas. The quickest and most popular method of flood management. The major portion of the Government of India funding to the state governments goes under this head only for construction of embankments and flood walls. The drainage congestion is a major problem and calls for well-designed solutions. Cost-effective, sound design and construction practice should be evolved through research and development. Channel improvement. Channels can be improved to carry peak discharge at levels lower than the high flood level. What is this channel improvements? It means, for example, over a period of time, due to silting, due to vegetation, the cross section of the channel reduces. When the channel reduces, the area cross section area reduces, the carrying capacity of the channel also reduces. So, how to improve it? Increasing size of the cross section, increasing velocity of flow, or doing both. Increasing size of cross section we understand. How do you increase velocity of flow? It means, suppose if the channel is unlined channel, if you make it lined channel, then the velocity naturally increases. Schemes are very costly since they involve dredging, desilting, weed control, lining, etc. Diversion of flood water. Flood water is diverted into natural or man-made channel to another basin or to the same basin much downstream of the floodplains or to a depression where it will be stored and released later. This is one of the very useful method where the water is, it has the two practical purposes. One is flood is averted. Second is that flood water is being utilized for the places where it is needed at later time or during that time. So interlinking of rivers is one of the main flood diversion management technique. This picture shows the proposed plan of the National Perspective Plan, where totally 14 links are proposed in the Himalayan region and 60 links are proposed in the peninsular region. As I shown earlier, the basins in the area of Ganga, Brahmaputra, Godavari and west flowing rivers of Periyar are only the flood prone areas. So through interlinking, if you are able to divert the water during monsoon, then it has two purposes. One is the flood in those areas also averted. Second is that water is transferred to the needy and useful basin. Now we will go to the next slide. Watershed management. How watershed management is going to help in flood management? It is very interesting actually. We heard that watershed management helps in water conservation, but here how it helps in flood management. Watershed management and catchment area treatment aim at cutting down and delaying the runoff. It is very important. One of the important watershed management technique is growing of or afforestation or growing of trees or reducing the silt flow. When you grow trees in the watershed areas or when you construct contour bunds in the watershed areas, that will slow down the process of flooding. It releases the water in a controlled way. It helps in reducing the peak of all water at a single time. Next is development of vegetative and soil cover with other measures like check dams, reduces soil erosion, improves water infiltration capacity of the soil and indirectly reduces flows and moderates flood peaks, which we discussed earlier. This picture shows the graphical representation of the watershed development. If you look at it, if you manage within the watershed, if you manage sub-basin wise, then the water to the main source, water reaching the main source is controlled or moderated. What is the role of Government of India and Central Water Commission in structural measures? As you all aware that Central Water Commission is having a separate design and research wing. CWC offers design consultancy for construction of structural measures like dams, barrages, canals, etc. That is with regard to design. Second is the flood management program. A state sector scheme under central plan is under implementation. State sector scheme means schemes being implemented by the concerned state government and either partially or fully funded by the central government. So this money is being released to the union state governments from the union government through Ministry of Jal Shakti and Central Water Commission. That program is called Flood Management Program. Last year it was renamed as a Flood Management and Border Area Program. So with regard to structural measures, union government gives design consultancy and funding also. Again, as I said earlier, the physical implementation part have to be done by the concerned water resources or irrigation or public works departments of state government. This is one of the important statistics. If you look at this table, it was updated up to 2017. So far, how far we have achieved with respect to physical achievement in flood management. The state wise and UT wise we are given. If you look at it, we have constructed around 37,000 kilometers of embankments and 40,000 kilometers of drainage channels, and 7,700 villages are benefited, 3,000 towns are protected, and totally if you look at it, 20.5 million hectares are benefited from the physical achievement through flood management work. This flood management work includes both the works implemented by the purely by the state government as well as by the funded by the union government. Now we will move to the non-structural measures for flood management. As I already told, the non-structural measures, the name indicates there is no construction of physical structures. Let us see what are all those techniques one by one. First is floodplain zoning, flood proofing, flood forecasting and warning. These are the three major non-structural measures. What is floodplain zoning? It is the nature of the river to overflow its bank and spill into its floodplain during floods. It means we cannot blame river that you spilled the water on us. Then it is its right to flow, because water is coming, it has to flow. Then what we have to do? Floodplain management involves identifying flood prone areas in the floodplains and regulating the land use to restrict the damage due to floods. The next pictorial representation will make it clarify this floodplain zone. Under floodplain zoning, we will go slowly one by one. If you see, both the left bank, the flow direction is in this direction. Both the left bank and right banks are classified into three zones. The area adjacent to the flow path, that is zone 3. The next zone is zone 2 and the still higher elevation is zone 1. So what is this one? First is identify that this is the flow area even during the normal season. It means don't touch this area. Don't allow anybody to encourage it. Don't allow anybody to occupy this one. This is the right of the river. We have to allow the water. That is the normal channel. And zone 3, it is filled with water. That is the yellow. But it is very frequently filled with water. But it is not always underwater. Such zones are classified as a zone 3. Under zone 3, what are the activities allowed? For example, you can grow trees. You can make some park. So such activities only allowed in zone 3 because it is comparatively low level area. So still higher elevation, it means flood occurs once in 25 years. On such areas, you can go for the permanent or semi-permanent structures. Your educational institutions, residential areas, such activities can be allowed in the zone 2. Then zone 2, zone 1 means it is a highly protected area. For example, factories, power houses, hospitals, atomic stations, such things shall be located in a higher elevated area because any small damage to those structures will cause great hazard. So by zoning this one, we can regulate the activity. The next important question comes, who will make the zoning and who will implement it? That is very important. It means one is the zoning in the map, zoning in the office, zoning in the desktop study. But actually in the field, how we have to implementation. It is a combined effort of both state government and union government. And finally, implementation part needs a very strict enforcement because implementation is not so easy. Now we will go to the next slide. The second category of non-structural measures is flood proofing. This is to be carried out on a very site specific, raising the level of the buildings and public utility installations above the flood levels. Raised platforms for humans and livestock has been attempted by some states and found to be unviable and unsafe. Generally, this flood proofing can be explored during the semi-permanent structures only, not for the permanent structures, especially in the northeastern states where the houses are constructed on bamboo and other wooden structures. These flood proofing can be attempted by lifting and changing the elevation of the building. In other places where the pakka concrete structure is constructed, raising the level of the building is little tedious and cumbersome. The third and most important non-structural measures is flood forecasting and warning. As I already told, we have three strategies. One is try to control the flood, if not possible, manage it. And third is, if both are not possible, at least reduce the damages. This flood forecasting comes under the combination of the second two, managing and reducing the losses. It helps. Now, what is the flood forecasting? What you are forecasting? Any forecast, the word itself says that you are forecasting something with respect to time in advance. By forecasting what you are going to achieve it, because you know that after some time something is going to happen, and if you know it in advance, you can react accordingly. That is the purpose of forecasting. So now here what we are forecasting. Forecast about flood in advance, allow time for taking precautions and alert flood fighting organizations so that timely and appropriate action is taken by civil authorities so that damage due to flood is minimized. CWC has established a nationwide forecasting and warning system in all the interstate river basin as well as the independent river basins also. We will see in detail. It is one of the non-structural measures. Yes, flood forecast is one of the non-structural. What you are forecasting? We have two types of forecast. One is either we forecast level after some time, after 5 hours, after 6 hours, after 12 hours, what will be my river level. And second is what is the quantity of water likely to come at that point. So one is estimation of level, second is estimation of quantity. By using this one, we make use it for our flood managing purposes. These are all the 4 steps involved in the flood forecasting. First is collection of hydrometeorological data. For any forecasting, you need some input data. For example, when we go to the astrologer for our future forecast, what we give him? We give him our birth chart. If no birth chart is available, we show at least our palm. So it means you need some input data for any forecasting. Here, what we need for our forecasting of flood level as well as the quantity of water is the data of the upstream stations in the same river. These data for which stations located in the upstream, these stations are called base stations. So we need the data of the upstream base stations. Second step is you have to transfer the data to the control room where they will process. The third step is they will analyze and formulate the forecast. And the last step is forecast dissemination and warning to user agencies. I repeat, the 4 steps are collection, transmission, analysis and forecast dissemination. This is the one of the typical station where we measure the water level through our telemetry radar type sensors. If you look at the picture, this is the solar panel and this is the radar sensor. It sends the signal and when it touches and comes back, based on that one it records the water level. This water level is transmitted to the division office for our forecast purpose. So it means you collect the data, that is first step, then transmit through telemetry, that is second step, and third is you receive it at the control station and you process it. When we transfer the data, we not only transfer the water level, we also transfer the rainfall data also. If you look at this picture, this is the automatic rain gauge where the rainfall is recorded by default every 15 minutes. The cable is connected to the telemetry here. Again, through this telemetry tower, the solar panel, the data reaches the control station. The question comes, I know the water level, then why do we need the rainfall also? This rainfall helps you in working out the runoff from the ungauged catchments. So the wherever possible, we record the rain gauge also. This picture will give you a complete idea. We will go by one. Now this is the Pennar Basin in Andhra Pradesh. This is the Nellore station. This site on both sides of this thickly populated area is located. It means now my forecast station is Nellore. I want to issue forecast for Nellore. So this station is called forecast station. For this forecasting purpose, I use the data of the CWC sites located upstream, Nandipalli, Chennur, Cheyyed and Somashila. So these stations are called base stations. These data of which I am using for my forecast, this is called base stations. The forecast for which station I am issuing, that is called forecast station. Base station, forecast station. And this forecast is being done by the divisional Central Water Commission office. So that is called the control station. How we define the flood situation? We will go back to the previous slide. Now I have arrived my forecasted water level for my Nellore town. After 12 hours at Nellore town, the water level is going to be this much. Then what is my next step? So this forecasted level, we have to see where it falls. We will go to the next slide and we will come back again here. This slide will tell you, suppose my forecasted level is below warning level, then there is no flood. You need not issue any forecast, you need not disseminate any data. If my forecast level is falls in between this danger level and warning level, then that indicates the symptoms of at Nellore town there is going to be a likely low level flood situation. Then you have to issue the warning. For low level flood situation, we issue warning in the green color form. Now we don't send any physical form. In the earlier years, we used to send forms according to the flood situation, so that they understand the flood situation by seeing the form. So if your forecasted water level falls within this zone above danger level but below 0.5 meter of HFL, then that is a moderate flood, which we depicted as a yellow color. And the forecasted water level is within the high flood and 0.5 meter range, that is a high flood situation. And your forecasted level is exceeding the previous high flood level, it means that is called unprecedented. It means it never happened in the past. If your forecast level is such that, then that is the highly red alert, red color form. The next question is, you forecasted the level, you know where it falls, everything is fine. To whom you will disseminate? Because this forecasting is being done by the Central Water Commission. We don't go and do the physically control activities at the field because it is beyond our mandate. So we disseminate this data to state government. That is very important. State government means who? The data shall first go to the collectorate, the water resources department, secretariat, all by mail and whatever the modes of transportation, we send it. In addition to that one, to the central level, we send it to these important authorities also. For example, for low flood and moderate flood, we don't send any information to Cabinet Secretary and Prime Minister office. For a high flood and unprecedented level, both Cabinet Secretary as well as the Prime Minister's office have to be intimated. This is the protocol being established as on date and being followed. After receiving information, what the state government does? Depending upon the situation, they have to react. Suppose if anybody available within that water level, they have to be immediately evacuated. That is their first and foremost job is to save the life of the people. Second is to save the property. All these actions are being done by the state government in coordination with the water resources department. This is one of the typical example of the levels of the forecast station at Nellore. Warning level, danger level, high flood level. The next question comes, who fixed this level? It is being fixed by CWC in consultation with the state government, because they only know the real ground situation fully. So on mutual discussion, we arrive at this level. The next question comes, is it fixed? No. It has to be periodically reviewed to suit the present condition. This is one of the typical example of the arriving at the various levels. What are the accuracy norms we are following? With respect to level forecast, our accuracy is plus or minus 15 centimeter. With regards to inflow forecast or water quality forecast for reservoirs, it is plus or minus 20%. And what is our warning time? Here I want to emphasize on an important point. Warning time means what? Warning time means you forecasted that water level, and when that forecasted water level will come at the particular site, after how many hours it will come, that is the warning time. Here, higher the warning time means people will have more time to react, but higher the warning time always lead to lesser the accuracy. But here generally what we do, For non-flashy rivers means the rivers of the east flowing rivers. Generally we give the warning of 12 to 24 hours. For flashy rivers, just like west flowing rivers, for example, the water, the highest level when it falls in Kerala, within 6 hours it reaches the Arabian Sea. There, how you will give 12 hours warning time? You cannot give 12 hours warning time to the west flowing rivers, especially of Kerala, Karnataka, where within 6 to 7 hours it reaches the Arabian Sea. So you will be maximum able to give 5 to 6 hours of warning time, and within that 5 to 6 hours warning time, the state government and people have to react. This slide shows the current forecasting station status. As on date, Central Water Commission issues level forecast for 197 stations and inflow forecast for 128 reservoirs. Altogether, 325 forecast stations are being operated by Central Water Commission, and every year it is being increased based on the request from the state government. And this I am talking about only about the forecast stations. Then what about the base stations? When you open a forecast stations, when you want forecast, naturally you need the data of the base stations also. For that purpose only, CWC opens a very huge network of new HO sites throughout the country. So those data are being used for the forecast purposes. So with regard to this slide, just we need only to remember only this much: 197 level forecast and 128 inflow forecast. Altogether, as on date, 325 forecast stations are being operated by Central Water Commission. Now we are in the final slide, summary slide. India is vulnerable for both flood and drought. That is the peculiarity. This happens because of our monsoon and spatial temporal variation. Monsoon rainfall and with spatial temporal variation is the major cause for the flood. Flood management policies being evolved since 1954. Judicial mixture of both structural and non-structural measures is necessary. It is very important. We have to choose where to implement structural measures, where to implement non-structural. Flood forecasting is one of the important non-structural measures, and Central Water Commission is the only agency involved in this flood forecasting activity. With this, we have come to the end of the lecture session. Dear trainees, hope you all might have enjoyed this. Take the message and spread as much as possible. Thank you. Good luck.